Hey, thanks for coming back. We're talking about stories and the power and control they have over our lives and how they end up ruling our lives. And I think there's no story more powerful than the story of money because it controls so many other aspects of our lives. And as I'm thinking about the world that I want to build for myself and the world that I want to build for my daughter, I've become a father for just a little over a year now. I realized that the story about money just isn't going to serve us. We're going to need a better story. So what does that story look like, and can we live it? Now, there's a lot of people out there who have these very grand ideas about, changing the money system and ending the Federal Reserve and all of these other kind of like very highfalutin ideas, but I don't think that's going to be effective for you and me. I think we're going to need a story that you and I, as individuals, we can start using and adopting in our lives. And if we start doing that, then I think we'll make this transition. Because at the end of the day, what is story? What is money? Money is a man-made invention that you and I came up with hundreds of years ago to help us facilitate trade. So if you want one thing and I want another thing, we would use this intermediary thing called money to make those two trades actually happen. It's something that you and we made up, and we told a story about it. And I know for a fact that if we want a better world, we're going to just going to need to tell a different story, a better story about what money is supposed to do. That's how it's meant to be. So I've been reading this book. It's called The Soul of Money. And this book has really been helping me uncover some of these ideas. And here are my three big takeaways from this book, because and I've done a lot of reflection on it, and maybe you can relate to this as well. So what are some of these stories? What are some of these lies that we hear about? Or what are some of these stories that no longer serve us? Well, I think the very first story is this idea that there isn't enough money. There isn't enough anything out there, right? So we believe that there isn't enough time, there isn't enough money, there isn't enough attention, there isn't enough customers, there aren't enough customers, there aren't enough clients, there aren't enough whatever. And we think things are going to run out and we're going to be left stranded by ourselves with nothing to show for it. We're going to end up on the streets without anything to our name. And I've seen this sort of fear grip even people making millions of dollars. I remember working with a business partner who was making seven figures easily, and he would haggle and he would literally take money away from people, offshore talent, for $10, $15 at a time, because he didn't think that they were doing their work well enough, and he would just cut them out because he had this very interesting story about money, that he didn't have enough and he had to conserve every single dollar that he had, lest it all go away. And he kept doing that. He kept, he had a very tight grip on money, and he would be great at making money, but then he would be terrible at actually spending it or investing it in people, because this is what the story of money tells us, that if there isn't enough money, then we need to hoard every single second of it. And to hoard it, we need to treat other people as interchangeable cogs. We need to treat them like quote-unquote assets, and then an asset no longer produces enough of a return, you have to throw them away. That's the idea that sort of this person had, and I see it happen throughout the world. But is that actually true? Is there not enough money? Well, we know for a fact that trillions and trillions of dollars exist out there, and it's just something, it's an idea, right? Because what is out there? What is money after all? It's just an idea in people's minds. It's an idea that is helped to facilitate trade. It's an idea that helps us interact with one another. It's a way to buy and sell things that actually matter. And if what I'm starting to realize is that this idea that there isn't enough money is really predicated on the idea that I'm not going to have enough. The world is going to get past me. And the antidote to that I am sort of stepping into a lot more, is this idea that no, what I have is enough. I have enough of X and enough of everything that I need. And when I stop and slow down and actually ask myself, what are all the things that I actually have right now? I think about things like my health. I think about things like my family. I think about things like my spiritual practice or my yoga practice. I think about the nutritious food that we eat as a family. And when I do all of these sorts of, I think about my friends, I think about my neighbors, I think about the things that I have that make my life good as it is. I think about the knowledge that I've accumulated over all this time. I think about the friendships I've made, the clients that I know, the people that I've connected with. And when I think about all of this, I realize that I have enough right now. And from this one place, I can get whatever else that I want. The antidote to the feeling that we don't have enough is community. Because if we know enough people, and if we rely on ourselves, if we rely on our own intelligence and our skills or our abilities and our ability to connect with one another, this idea that there isn't enough goes away, right? Because we know for a fact that the things that I have in my life are enough to make me feel whole. Because money never had the power to make us feel whole. Money never had the power to make us realize that, oh, there's things are going to run out. Money never had the power to make us feel safe. It was always the things that money gave us that made us feel safe, that made us feel enough. And what were those things? Those things were community. Those things were other people. Those things were our own self-knowledge. Those were the things that have been the only things that have made us feel that we are enough, that we have enough. And the more I think about that, the more I realize that I don't need to worry about money, because if I can help someone else, I will have enough as well. And this shift in thinking it's something that I practice every single day. I read the news, I go on social media, which I've really cut back down a lot on. And I get sometimes stuck in the trap when I look at social media, I look at the news, because the ads pop in and they say, oh, you need to get this, you need to get that. And I look at what I have and I'm like, oh, but what if I want this? What if I want that? But do I have enough? But then I pause and I ask myself, well, hold on, what do I have right now? Well, I have my health, I have these sorts of things, I have my family, friendships, the self-knowledge that I have to make this video for you right now. And I realized that, no, I'm going to be okay. The tank isn't going to run out. That's been a big shift for me, because the other lie that we think about when it comes to money is that more is better. The more money we have, the better we're going to be, the more safe and secure we're going to be. And I'm realizing that that's not true either. I was talking to you about my friend or a former business partner who was making 7 figures, but he does not feel that he has enough. He's always working. He works 15, 16 hours a day. I barely see him ever take a break, spend enough time with his family. I don't think he has much of a social life either. I know a lot of people who sort of are extreme workaholics because they are sort of on this endless chase of feeling that they don't have enough and they need to go get more. They need to go get more than even what they have, even if they're making millions of dollars. They need to go out there and get even more. And right now I'm seeing this happening for corporations as well, who are on this endless pursuit of growth, that they don't have enough. And this idea is actually in some ways codified because of shareholder primacy. This idea that tells us that the business's sole function is to provide a return to their shareholders, to provide money for their shareholders, to see growth for their shareholders. And this idea has become so toxic because no organic entity can grow endlessly. Like, think about a tree. What if a tree kept growing endlessly? Would it reach space? Would that even happen? We know that would be ludicrous, right? A tree has a natural limit that it's meant to grow up to this high, and then after that it's meant to just sort of stay there, and then eventually it withers away. There's lightning, there's a forest fire, it burns down, and then from the ashes another tree grows. It becomes mulch for becomes the detritus on which the new trees and the new forest is born. And we don't believe that anymore. We just sort of want endless growth. And we are seeing the incredible toxic effects of this idea that there isn't enough, that we need more. And it's in some ways sort of hurting our economy. It's hurting our world. And we've made the economy the primary focus in our world. And that's what's so toxic. That's what's so dangerous. What would happen if, as a society, we would pursue enough as the goal for our businesses, for our corporations? What would happen if we made that the pursuit in our own lives? And I see this broken all the time. I think when I became a father, I started to ask myself, what are the limits that we want to live within in our world? And quite often I see parents, I see other families that are interested in putting their kids in the same treadmill, the same system. I see that they're profoundly unhappy, they're working constantly, they barely have enough time for their own kids, but they're out there and they want to inculcate their kids into this narrative and story as well. I see parents taking kids as young as 5 years old to college campuses of Harvard and other Ivy League schools to sort of prime them into wanting to go there, so that they too can become investment bankers and management consultants who work for businesses that want to pursue endless growth, endless expansion. This idea is so prevalent in our society, and the only antidote to that is to tell ourselves, you know what is my enough going to look like? What is my enough as a business? What's my enough as an entrepreneur? How do I want to see other people once I have enough? And you can actually see people for being people. You can see the planet for being a valuable, most valuable thing, because it upholds all of us once we pursue enough instead of endless growth. And I think the last lie that I think about a lot is that this is just the way it's been, so we have to sort of roll around with it. We have to just accept it for how it is. Of course you have to go out there and go on this 12-year school cycle, then this college cycle, and then after that you have to go put your time into work, or you need to go raise a lot of money, start a new venture, and disrupt an industry, and just displace a lot of things out there. This story is broken, right? Like in everything in life, we have seen change happen. Of course we have. Of course we've had to change things. Things just aren't the way they are, right? We saw entire empires rise and fall. I come from an immigrant background, and I come from India originally. And in India, there was the East India Company had come over as a colonizing force, and it felt that the East India Company would never leave. Like the rule of the British, there was an expression that said the sun never sets on the British Empire. That from one end of the world to the other, the British Empire had a colony, and they had all this accumulated power, and that was the dominant story at that time. And of course, now we live in an age where that story is no longer true. The story of our times is that, well, the corporation is the sun never sets on the Apple Corporation. The sun never sets on this economic engine of endless growth. Like that is the dominant story right now, and we have to say no to it. We have to say, no, I want to find a better story. And the better story is the story that tells us, well, what does my enough look like? What do I have in my hand right now that helps me feel enough? And once you do that, you start to step out of these stories of there's not enough and I need more, right? I think these ideas are sort of intertwined. And I think these ideas are also intertwined with our consciousness, how we see ourselves and each other. Because what's missing in this equation is a study of consciousness, a study of who we actually are. And from my belief system and from my lived experience, what I'm stepping into a lot more is that who I actually am is consciousness. Who I actually am is a conscious being. That this mind and body is something that's ultimately temporary, and I'm here to make good, responsible decisions to grow in this world. There's this expression that the universe is really just a university to help me grow. Of course, I'm meant to make money and provide for my family and help us grow in our own way. But beyond that, I have a higher purpose. I have a higher goal. And one of that purpose is to see each and every living being from that same lens, that they are not the mind body that they're inhabiting. They too are this form of consciousness. And the more I spend my time thinking about them like that, the more I realize that why would I want to hurt someone who is in some ways the same as me? These ideas, these myths about scarcity and the hold they have on us, and how they end up impacting and running our lives. And we need to sort of really step back and critically look at these stories. But I'd love to know maybe what your experience has been like with money, what lies and fears and beliefs that you have about scarcity, because they end up ruling our lives. These stories about scarcity end up controlling us. So please leave a comment below. I think in my next video, I'm going to explore more about this idea of scarcity, more about this idea of how consciousness is really the antidote to a lot of these broken stories that we have, and yeah, we'll just keep exploring. So thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next time.